Joyful miles. Woo.
That's awesome. Hello, everyone. Laura here with Joyful Miles, a channel that's all about inspiring others to enjoy life 1 mile at a time. We are continuing with our awesome Jammin' on the Run guest, Chris Savio, who has been talking about the Chicago Marathon. If you did not see part one of this video, go ahead and check out the links below. And as always, we have Megan, we have Rob, and Jackie, who has another awesome Joyful Milestones to share.
All right, so this week's joyful milestone is actually a race I completed with my cousin Shannon. So I want to give a shout out to Shannon. We did a 10K, the Monster Scramble, and it was for MS. It was a great race, and I got a PR for it, so I'm excited. My best time, and Shannon, I think, got a PR too. But the funny part about it is we were amongst the last. I think Shannon was the last person to cross the finish line, but who cares? We still did it. We knew it going into it, and we had a great time.
That's awesome.
Make it joyful, even if you're last.
Congratulations, both of you. And if you have a joyful milestone to share, please use the hashtag joyful milestones in Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and we will be sure to find you and give you a shout out.
So let's talk about race day. So starting with, what time did you wake up?
So got up at, I want to say probably like 5:50, 6 o'clock, something like that. The start time of the race was 7. So the first wave was at 7:30, and then the wave I was in was at 8. So got up at whatever, like 5:45, 6 o'clock, somewhere in that area. Had gotten room service, kind of pre-ordered just to get kind of a bagel brought to the room, bagel, peanut butter, and stuff. So that got delivered promptly at 6, and had that, got myself ready, and was out the door probably at like 6:25. And so where we were located, our hotel, it's kind of maybe I want to say a mile-ish walk to where the start line was. So the start line was down in, if anyone's familiar with Chicago, kind of the Grant Park area. So everything kind of starts and finishes from there. So it was about a mile walk, and I was not alone in the walk. I would say there was, hundreds of people just on Michigan Ave walking down to the start line at the same time. So it was kind of cool.
Nice.
So you're able to walk from your hotel?
Yep.
Which hotel did you stay at?
It's called the Warwick Allerton. It's kind of just a local old hotel that's been renovated and stuff.
What was the weather like?
Oh, perfect.
Really
It was 55 at race start, got up to maybe 62 by the end of the race. It was,
That's awesome.
Yeah, you couldn't really complain. It was pretty sunny, especially at the end of the race. There's not much cover, so it was 62. It felt significantly hotter than that, and that would be kind of my one complaint a little bit about how the course kind of ends. So you can stay tuned a little for that information.
But did you know in advance, like, what time you were going to start?
Yeah, so they're pretty good, as Laura was saying, about kind of communication-wise. So they let you know what your bib number is. I think they kind of sent that out in almost June or July. You can check what corral you're in. And actually, it was interesting. So if you don't have a qualifying proof of time under 3:55, then you just enter what you think your time is going to be, and they place you in the corral based on that. So I had actually put in my estimated time of 4 hours, and they put me in kind of a later corral. It was a mistake on their part, and it was kind of simple. I just emailed back and said, I requested a corral change, said the time that I thought I was going to finish, and told them, as I was basing it off my kind of previous half marathon time, which I put in there too, just in case they needed that. And within like 3 days, my corral was changed to that. So then they're pretty good, and they say, so anyone that has kind of a qualifying time is in corrals A through E, and that started at 7:30. And then anyone that was just given what time they were going to finish was F through, I want to say, F, G, H. I think it went to I or K maybe. Then started at 8. And they slowly walked the people through. So I'd say the 7:30 start, those corrals were probably out of the blocks by 7:40, 7:42. All of those runners were off.
Now, how strict are they as far as checking to see if you're in the correct corral? Because we all know Disney is pretty rigid about that.
Yeah, I mean, they were checking. They weren't, they had people at the kind of, they had the gates set up, and they had someone there kind of looking at the bibs. They didn't look too aggressive. I will say the corrals, again, saying that there was almost 45,000 people running, or 40,000 plus, however many started. The corral was not crowded at all, which was kind of surprising. I mean, in those Disney ones, you're really packed in there like a sardine, and when they start moving the corrals forward, more people are still flooding in, whether or not they're jumping corrals or not. But this was not crowded at all. I mean, up until maybe even after the first group went off at 7:30, up until maybe 7:45, you had to be in your corral by 7:40. But even up until 7:45, I could have, if I wanted to, probably like sat down on the floor and stretched out. That's how much room there was, and I was kind of in the middle of the corral.
Is there a minimum pace requirement for this race? Do you know?
Yes, I want to say it's 16 minutes. I think 16-minute mile. Based
So
off
do you
the last.
have the slower people? I know you're fast and you got done pretty quick, but like, are there the slower people like we see, like myself in Disney? Is this a
You're
race?
not that slow anymore.
Slow is relative. I want to think the longest time that I saw in finish was in the low sixes. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know anything about kind of where like kind of the points were where they would cut you off or anything to that though, unfortunately. But I did see in some of the finish time list there, some of the ones at the end were in the 6-hour range.
Is there any pre-race atmosphere? Is there like any sort of pre-race announcements, festivities, anything?
Yeah, so I mean, they have music playing the whole time. There's a DJ kind of up there talking to everyone, making jokes, general announcements. So you go in, they have kind of the corrals are set up, they're color coded. So everything before E, so A to E are kind of red corrals. F and G were blue corrals, and then H, I, and K. Do I know my alphabets? Yeah. Or J, K, whatever, were gray. And so by your color, that's where you checked your bag. And then in that bag check area was also broken out into your bib number by 1,000. So you kind of walk through. You went if you had to drop your bag, kind of easy, not crowded at all. Again, I'm very amazed how well organized and not crowded it felt for one of the biggest races in the country.
Which is funny because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Disney capacity for their marathon is only like 25,000 or something, isn't it?
And the corrals at Disney go to, for the full, I think it goes to like letter P.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that, like you said, it didn't feel crowded in the actual corral. You would think it might.
Yeah, it was. And I remember looking at the finish, and I think 42,000 people finished. So my guess is that probably close to 44 had started, or around there. So, yeah, it was kind of amazing. Like, you were able to go, and there, I hung out and stretched a little bit. Like I said, there was good music playing. They had the marathon photo animals all over the place, trying to take your photo everywhere. And and it was great. I mean, there was a little bit of traffic kind of then starting to go back and get into the corral, but in general, it was fairly easy. And so the elite group, or not the elite group, the 7:30 group had to be in by their corrals by 7:10, and the 8 o'clock wave had to be in by 7:40. And if you weren't in, they were strict though about kind of closing it off, and then you just had to go to the back of that whole wave. So
Laura still would have been there at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
She still would have been awake at 3 a.m.
Yeah. It was nice. It was.
I was gonna say she wouldn't have been sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, what I wish I did know is that where the hotel was located was right next to the Northwestern Hospital. So there were a lot of ambulances. For some reason, the night before, so I woke up, I think, at like 2:30 and just couldn't really fall back asleep. I maybe fell back asleep for 20 minutes here or there. But
that would be why your hotel was cheaper.
I guess so.
Is there, I don't know if I'm jumping, but that your wife went, so she watched you, obviously, right?
Yep.
So could she jump from different places to watch? Or I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but.
No, that's fine.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, looking at the course, if you had your family coming, are there multiple places you can see your family run, or is it difficult?
Yeah, so I would say this is probably, from most of the races I've ever seen, one of the most spectator-friendly races that you could find. So it's set up, if you were think about, so Chicago really only has 3 directions you can go because the Lake Michigan is to the east. So the race starts off and it goes north for about 6 miles. Then it comes back into kind of the heart of the city. Then it goes west for a couple miles, and then it comes back to the heart of the city. Then it goes south for about 3 miles and comes back to the city. So you could conceivably see someone on their out and back in one area. So, for example, my wife saw me at around 3.5 and 11. If she really wanted to kind of haul down and see me around probably mile 25, she probably could have, which was near the finish. She isn't the most comfortable person navigating cities, so she's like, I know those areas, and then I'll meet you at the finish line. But for example, one of my other friends that lives in Chicago saw me at mile 10, mile 14, and mile 16 without really breaking a sweat. So it's pretty easy. I mean, you could, in my opinion, see someone probably 5 times fairly easily if you want to get around. Yeah, so it is very, very spectator friendly in that sense.
That's something that you just can't do in Boston.
No, and a lot of these races are kind of straight shots, from start to finish, and or even kind of loop around, but really big loops, are a little more difficult to do. Maybe you can see someone twice if there's an out and back area, or if you can see them, near the beginning of the race and somehow get to the end of the race.
So let's talk about the course a little bit. First, logistics, the things that we all worry about. How about hydration stations? What was that situation like?
It was great. They probably had them at the beginning, spaced out every 2-ish miles, give or take, up until mile maybe 10, and then they were coming pretty fast at that point. It felt like at that point they were almost every mile and a half for the whole second half of the race.
What do they have?
And
they had
Gatorade. So they had Gatorade and water at every station. So they had it both sides of the course, and they probably had, each station ran for about maybe 150, 200 meters at least. It still didn't stop, those people that think that they have to grab the first cup of water or first cup of Gatorade sprinting in front of you. But you get that at every race. So that was the setup. They'd have the Gatorade first and the water second. And then from nutrition-wise, they had goo. I think they had 3 stops of goo after mile 9 or so. So they had one kind of around there. Maybe around like 15 or so and later, and then from mile 21 to the finish, every 2 miles they had bananas as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was definitely, if you're dehydrating or not being nourished on this course, you're doing something wrong.
Mm. Now,
and then medical at all those too, with porta potties and Vaseline. And
I was going to get to porta potties because our biggest fear is pooping.
Yeah, no, the porta potty setup before the race was great. They had them kind of near the bag check area and near the actual start line areas. And then they had, a handful of porta potties at almost every aid stop. And then at the aid stops too, the first half, not as much. They probably had about 6 or 7 people staffed at those. Mm-hmm. The second half of the race, they had, I want to say every aid station had close to 15 to 20 people stationed at them. It was pretty amazing.
So let's talk about the spectators, because I want to hear about the drag queens and Elvis impersonators.
I saw Elvis and I said, oh crap, she's really going to hate missing this one.
And apparently for the Chicago Theater, there are people doing jazz hands, and you all know I love jazz hands. So tell us all about it, Chris.
Yeah, so from a spectator standpoint, I'd say if you've ever run a Run Disney race at Walt Disney World, in a number of areas, and when I say a number, probably upwards of half the course, it felt like you were running down Main Street. That was the number of people and how loud people were on the course in different locations. Cool. It's pretty amazing. From kind of right off the start, you run, you go kind of under an overpass, then you come out and you're running underneath Michigan Ave, but there's all the people kind of hanging over the bridge and screaming kind of up the stairs. So the beginning's kind of in the downtown area, so you have a lot of people lining the roads. Probably from mile 1 till, I don't know, maybe mile 5, there probably wasn't an empty spot on the sidewalk for people cheering, which was pretty awesome. So that was great. And then you get into what I would say was the best part of the race. So once you get to around mile 8, you go through this area called Old Town, I think is what it's called, which is kind of just a big party atmosphere. Tons of people there screaming, dancing. They had Army ROTC guys that were like twirling guns and doing, different calls on the side of the road. They had people just ad hoc setting up bands on the side. So just normal people come out and they had their kind of drum kits and stuff set up. People with different horns and trombones playing on the side of the road. Sound systems both from the actual race itself as well as just people with their own speaker systems set up. Then when you go through Boys Town, that is where the drag queens were set up on both sides, 4 or 5 on each one, kind of singing and dancing and stuff, which was pretty funny. I think I got a "Hey Honey" to me. At least I want to think that.
Take it.
There you go. So that was great. And then as you keep going, you kind of turn more south back into the city, and that's where there's an Elvis impersonator that's just always out there, for the whole race, just kind of singing and dancing up on his stage. And so that the crowds, I mean, there's nothing you can say. My one complaint would be, so the crowds then thin out for a little bit at right at kind of the halfway point until you get to maybe mile 14, 15, then they kind of fill up again a little bit until you get to around mile 20. You go through then Greektown and Chinatown, which have people, but aside from that, until like mile 25, it's pretty empty. You're running through kind of the south side of Chicago, which isn't the best place in the world. So it doesn't surprise me there weren't tons of people around, and you're kind of along kind of a highway and stuff. So my preference would be, I wish they kind of actually ran the course backwards, because also the last 5 or 6 miles there's no shade.
You need it.
Yeah, there's also no shade at all. So it's the hottest time of the day, and it's the hottest point in the race. And
even at 62 degrees if it's sunny.
Yeah, it felt pretty darn hot at that point. And the crowds are very low until you kind of get to mile 25. I did grab a cup of PBR along the way, just because I wanted, because they were giving it out around mile 23. People were cheering with beers, or 22. So I grabbed one, immediately took a sip, realized it was PBR, spit it out, and threw it on the floor. But but I wanted to get the cheer of people when you actually grab one of the beers, and it's all about the energy at that point.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that would be my kind of one complaint.
Did they have people giving out snacks or anything?
Yeah, so there were some people kind of later in the race. They had, the Twizzlers. They had, oranges cut. Some people had different fruit, like strawberries. People, had pretzels and stuff. So there was kind of a nice mixture of just people off to the side, if you wanted different snacks along the way.
Considering how many runners they had to have had, that's pretty.
You gotta peel and cut a lot of orange.
Yeah,
that's a lot of prep work.
Fan there. That's awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your experience going through the course, because I remember you saying that in your recap that your first half you felt great. You felt like you were really flying. Through the first about 20 miles, right? And then you kind of started having some difficulty. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I actually went out. So I wanted to go out for a 3:55 pace. So I wanted to go out at like 1:57, give or take. They had pace groups, so that I can get really bad with pacing myself, especially when there's a big crowd. Like I get really amped up and high-fiving people, and all of a sudden, instead of running a 9-minute mile, I'm now running like an 8-minute mile, and then you pay for that later. So I kind of told myself, okay, I'll run with a pace group, and then if I want to, pick it up at some point, I will. They unfortunately didn't have a 3:55 pace group. They had a 3:50 or a 4-hour pace group. So I was like, okay, let's conserve the energy. I'll run with the 4-hour pace group. In hindsight, I kind of wish I ran with the 3:50 because I may have had more in the bank for when I started to cramp up, but I may have cramped up sooner. So, at this point, hindsight's 20/20, so who the heck knows. But so I ran with a 4-hour pace group. They kept during the running portion around an 8:58 pace, a 9-minute pace, because they were kind of allotting for time when you get to the water stations that they know people would get slowed down. Great guys, and the first half was great. We got through, ran the first half in I think 1:59, and felt really comfortable. My wife saw me right at 12. She said, "You look great." I saw one of my buddies at 14. He was saying, "You're looking fantastic," and then I saw him again at 16, and then so I had gotten into, so I mentioned earlier I was carrying salt tablets with me because in some of my training runs earlier, I started getting cramps in my calves and in my quads after like 16, 17, 18 miles, like sometimes pretty bad. So I thought maybe I was losing a lot of salt or sodium, so I started doing some of that. So anyway, so I got past 16, I felt good. I got past 18, I'm like, okay, I'm over the hurdle, I'm feeling good. And then right around mile 20-ish, my quad started cramping up, and I pushed through it for like another mile or so. And that's when I was like, I need to kind of stretch this. So I stopped to stretch. The pace group had left at that point, just because I couldn't kind of speed up to them anymore. And as soon as you kind of stop running, I think anyone that runs kind of knows as soon as you stop that motion, everything starts to tighten up and cramp, and my left leg just kind of between my calf and my quad and my hamstring just all kind of tightened up, and I probably screamed like a little girl.
So how did you overcome that? What were some of the things in your head? Because you still got quite a distance to go.
Yeah.
Now
So
you're hurting. Talk us through that a little bit.
So it was right around like 21 and a half. It was kind of near, I think, a water stop. So I stopped. I tried to stretch a little. I think I texted my wife, I'm done. I'm cramping up. This is terrible. I think I debated crying for a second because I was kind of, I felt so good. I think like physically and mentally, I thought I was on a good pace and probably could have turned it up a little. But she texted me back. She's like, you don't have far to go, yada, yada. So after stretching a little, I think I ate.
Easy for her to say.
Yeah, exactly. I think I ate probably, 4 salt tabs at that point. I was like, I know I'm hydrated. Maybe it's a sodium thing. It could have just been probably a fatigue thing at the end of the day. But I ate a bunch of that, stretched, walked a little, tried running a little. That didn't work that well. And there was actually this other guy that you could also tell was kind of struggling and stretching. And so I don't know what it was, but I kind of walked past him kind of cursing to myself. And he went running past me and kind of tapped me on the shoulder and like gave me 5 and said, come on, you can push through this. And it kind of just gave me this other like boost of like, okay, this guy seems to be hurting too. And so we actually ran together for like a mile or so, and then he kind of slowed down, and I ended up pushing ahead and then kind of went to the Galloway kind of interval type thing. So I ran for about 4 minutes, walked for a minute, ran for 4 minutes, walked for a minute, and I think I tried to just keep myself around a 10-minute mile pace at that point, 10, 15, and was able to kind of push through. And at that point, I knew the sub 4 hours was done, so I started doing some math in my head, and I was like, okay, if I can push through with this, I can get sub 4:10. So I kind of reassessed myself, said, okay, let me try and do that, and kept looking at the time and math, and then like any terrible somehow, I don't know, these sadistic race directors, you turn this corner, so you see the 800 meter marker, and then you see a 500 meter, and you turn this corner, and it's an overpass that probably goes up 20 feet in about a 75 meter span. So needless to say, you see people kind of make this turn onto this block, and people just like are running hard and then just kind of hit this wall. And it's just like, you just see everyone kind of slow down. So that was a little torturous because I was like, okay, 400 meters left. I know I could probably run this, in the pain that I'm in with under 2 minutes. Needless to say, that did not work out, and I ended up, being 100 meters out with 20 seconds left to get to 4 hours. And I was like, okay, I got to turn back to my high school sprint days and somehow figure this out. But was able to get in there with my 5 seconds to spare, and then there is kind of the race video there at the end. I look as bad as I thought I did, like stumbling over the finish line, just like miserable. But at the end of the day, I didn't get what I wanted to, but I was kind of happy that I didn't just kind of walk the rest of the race, because I probably could have done that and still been, still gotten a decent time, but, I kind of pushed myself a little more. So
what was your final time?
4:09:55.
I'd say that's a decent time. I'd say that's better than
fantastic. I know.
Especially, this was really your first marathon, real, and again, not to disparage what we do at Disney, but this is your first real marathon since you went rogue and did it way back when. You said in college. I'm not calling you old, but that's a pretty big gap, right?
Old enough, yeah. It's 12 years, so
yeah, that's a huge time. So, kudos to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was, I definitely recommend to anyone, like, the Disney races and stuff are fun, and I'm never going to give those up. But, every now or then sign up for something that you can be more kind of competitive in and really push yourself and see, I think the ability to, not even the race itself, but the training portion of it, to kind of give yourself, whether it's structure or force yourself to do something. I am not the most kind of structured person when it comes to stuff like that. I don't like planning out things. Even when it came to school back in the day or with work, I'm kind of more of a, on the fly type person, but it's kind of, there is that payoff, and whether you, as I said, kind of in that post, you kind of meet your arbitrary goal that for some reason you set for yourself or not, you're going to be happy. So
That's great.
Outstanding. Yeah. I know we're running long, and this is probably going to be a 3-parter or a 4-parter by the time we're done, but let's talk about the finish. So You finish. What was that like?
So the finish was great. So with all the crowds and everything that were out on the course, unfortunately the finish area is closed off. So unlike, and I keep going back to Boston just because I have the experience of going to the finish line there and seeing it, but you can't get to the finish line if you're just a normal spectator. Right. You have to have like tickets or be friends with someone's cousin's brother's uncle or whatever. And so it was kind of, it was good, but it wasn't super loud at the finish. But at that point, I really wasn't even paying attention. You kind of have tunnel vision. The one thing where I was saying, you go up this hill and then you make another turn and it's like 150 meters to the finish. So they don't torture you that much with like seeing the finish line, but still having like a quarter of a mile to run. So that's at least nice of them. But finish line area was set up. It was nice and wide. They were pretty good about getting people out of the way, whether they were just stopping to, check their watches or, falling over in pain or whatever it was. There was someone there to either escort them through or encourage them, keep it moving. So that was great from that standpoint. And then there is a long walk to get back to kind of the bag check area. So along the way, they have water right there when you finish. Then they had some fruit set up for like apples and bananas and stuff. Then after that, they had the medals. So they kind of wanted to make sure that you were hydrated and you were starting to eat before you were worrying about getting your medals or anything like that. They had the Mylar blankets for you after that as well. And then they kind of gave you your goodie bags, which had a few different things from it had those Brookstone little goji chocolate things in there. It had some pretzels, some goldfish, I think a power bar. They had like a Gatorade protein shake, and a few other kind of small things. They had a beef jerky. Not really sure what that was about. I did not do that. And then also they had the Goose Island truck right in the middle set up so you could get your free beer at the end of the race as well.
I'm so doing this race next year.
I know. I want to do it. I'm getting excited about it.
Yeah. It's a great race. What's up?
How was the bling? Because that's all we care about around here. That's why we run these races.
We've been waiting all this time to hear about the bling.
So the bling. So we'll show you the bling. So it is, before I show it to you, there is a Picasso statue in, I think it's Daly Square in Chicago. I think Picasso built it in early 60s, maybe, something like that. And so here's what the bling looks like. We'll hold it up there.
So pretty.
So if you go online and just look up Picasso statue, you'll see exactly what it's supposed to look like, and it does look as weird as that. But I guess what's cool is that, so this was the 39th running, I think, of the race, but when they ran it 39 years ago, it actually started right outside of Daly Square in front of the statue, which is kind of cool.
Is it always the same medal in a way? Or do they change it?
So I think they change it. It looks like every year. So last year they had the bean, that bean that they have in the Memorial Park on it. So I think 2 years before that they kind of had the Chicago skyline. The setup, I think they do. So the 4 stars on the top are kind of from the Chicago flag. They have the 4 stars, which are 4 things that I don't remember what they mean. So that's always on it, and obviously the Bank of America logo. And I think the color scheme's always the same. It's always a silver medal. But as far as kind of the size or design and stuff, I think it varies from each one.
But it's beautiful. And I heard also that if you took it to, was it Fleet Feet, you could get it engraved for free?
Yep. So they had Fleet Feet had 2 locations. So I think they had their Old Town and South Shore one, or wherever the heck South Side, I don't know, location. Or there was a Nike Town also on Michigan Ave where you could go to, or there was another Nike store you could go to. I went to our hotel was right down the block from Nike Town, so went there just to see what it was like. The wait was like an hour and a half, and I was like, man, I'm all set with waiting that long to get an engraving of a medal. I can kind of get that done at home if I really want to. But I will say the cool thing at the Nike Town was when you walked in after the race, like they knew that you were a runner, whether you had like your gear on or something like that. They had like just a bunch of employees like crowded around the door, like applauding for people that were runners when they walked in.
Cool.
So that was really cool. Actually, it kind of felt like a celebrity.
That's very
so
awesome.
Had like, yeah, they had like a DJ playing music and all this stuff in the Nike store. So that was pretty neat.
So was there any, just to kind of finish up with the race itself, was there anything post-race festivities, anything worthwhile?
So they had, so after you kind of got your gear, there was a family meeting area, which was also kind of just a big open. That was kind of a cluster. What I don't understand is like how they had it set up. Like you walked through this one entryway and people were just basically jumping on where the runners would be to meet up with the person that they were looking for. I don't know who said the smartest meeting place for us would be right when you walk out of this race area, but clearly someone told someone, hey, meet me right when I walk out of there. But they had a bunch of last name letters. You can obviously say I'll meet you by anything, but they had A through Z, and you can say, oh, I'll meet you by the Z tent or tower or whatever, so you can coordinate with your family that way. And the area in general that is pretty big, where this family spectator meeting area is. They had a big stage set up with a band going. They had food. They had Goose Island had a tent set up, like a beer tent, so you could buy some tickets beforehand and go over and get beers. They had the massage section set up if you wanted to, get massages for yourself. So it was a nice big area. I mean, we hung out there for a little while, basically kind of just I was eating a little and, just relaxing for a little bit. And this is where you started again. It's not very shady over there, and it was really, really hot. And it was only 64 or 65 at that point, but I swear it felt like it was 80 degrees at that point. Yeah. So I think we hung around for. So I finished the race at 12:30. The walk, I will say, it took me almost a half hour to 40 minutes to actually get to my wife, which was in the spectator meeting area. First, you're walking slow, you're taking pictures, but the walk from the finish line to that actual meeting area probably is 3/4 of a mile to actually get there. So I guess it's kind of a good thing. They do make you, kind of keep walking and keep moving, which is the most important thing to do right when you finish running that long. If you kind of sit down or stop moving yourself or start stretching immediately, it's not the smartest thing to do. You should kind of keep yourself slightly active. So they make you do that by walking nearly a mile.
So would you do it again?
Yes, I think I would. And I'm already kind of, like I said, I want to do another one just to try and get my sub 4, and then I tell myself I'll stop doing the competitive, and then of course at that point I'll set another arbitrary goal for myself and do that. But yeah, I would definitely do this one again. Would it be next year? Maybe, maybe not. The year after, though, I guess next year is the 40th anniversary, so it might be some cool stuff or some even better bling or something. So we'll see once I get that email from them saying, hey, sign up to register. We'll see what we want. I know that my wife was very jealous and was kind of having, her own kind of FOMO type thing going on, and was pissed during the expo and everything that she wasn't running. So my guess is she'll probably try and get in the lotto next year.
Nice.
So Chris, I just want to end by saying thank you so much for taking the time tonight to talk to us. You've been fantastic. Listening to your story has been awesome. But before you go, what we like to end the show with is what we like to call the sprint to the finish, where we answer a question rapid fire style. And since you're our guest of the week, we're going to pepper you with the questions from each of us. So real quick, my question would be, in Chicago, where was your favorite place to eat?
Purple Pig.
And where was that?
So it's in the River North area. No reservations. Small plate, kind of not really Mediterranean influence, but they have a nice variety of everything from a giant type turkey leg to bone marrow to jowl to whipped feta. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's going on my list. What was it again? The purple what?
Purple Pig.
Purple pig. So not for the vegans.
No. They had some stuff, but you'll be missing out.
Jackie, go.
Did you have any blisters or lose any toenails or anything like that from the race? Any bird stories you want to share?
Before the race, lost a toenail during training. Nothing during the race, though.
Megan, what do you got?
Anybody wear any type of costume themed?
Yeah, I saw some guy that he actually was running faster than me wearing a cow costume.
Nice.
That was pretty
I don't know
sad.
if I do that.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It was utterly disappointing.
Oh,
That's getting a
at least he
standing
wasn't juggling.
kind gentleman.
Nice.
We didn't even prep for that one.
Chris, mine is multi-part, but it's going to be quick. Get ready to give grades, grade A through F, whatever. Runner communication, what would you give it?
A.
All right, Expo.
A-.
Race organization and corrals.
A+.
The course.
B+.
The spectators.
A.
And the bling.
Aside from it being that, like, the race itself, if I was just looking at the bling itself, probably a B+.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me, everyone. This was awesome.
Thank you. It's really
Thank you. This is great.
That's going to wrap us up for today, but thank you so much for watching. Thanks again, Christopher, for being here. If you'd like to subscribe, go ahead so you can get more video updates. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions about the Chicago Marathon, please leave them in the comments below. I know Chris will be more than willing to answer anything you have or any questions about running in general. Until then, happy running and have a joyful day.
Oh, yes, do that
Before
one.
the
Do that one.
race.
Do that one.
That's terrible.
It's important. It's very stressful. We need to know.
Okay, all right.